Among the many things of interest to see and do in New York City, Central Park has a particular tourist jewel for foresters, a stand of mature American elms. This is notable because of the near total loss of American elm in the 1900s due to Dutch elm disease, DED for short. American elm is native to North America, with a natural range throughout the eastern states and southern Canada. But beyond its natural range, beginning long ago, the American elm was heavily planted throughout the U.S. as an urban landscaping tree. As the caption on the right says, each dot represents 10,000 trees, which means many tens of millions of trees planted across America. The appeal of the American elm was its vase-like crown architecture, which made it ideal as a shade tree. The expression Elm Street, USA became synonymous with stately, shaded, pleasant streets and neighborhoods. People alive today who grew up with elm-lined streets still extol the virtue and beauty of Elm Street, USA. Alas, in the 1930s, a fungus known as Dutch elm disease and a beetle that could carry it inadvertently made their way into North America. Neither were native here, and safeguards were in place to prevent introduction of plant pests. But in spite of those best intentions, introduction of DED occurred anyway. The fungus clogs up the vascular system of the trees, effectively starving leaves of moisture, causing them to turn yellow and fall off, greatly diminishing the tree's photosynthetic capacity. Death occurs slowly but surely. Spores of the fungus glom onto the bodies of elm bark beetle, which then transports the fungus to other trees. Given that elms were so heavily planted, often with their crowns and/or root systems intersecting with each other, propagation of DED could not be stopped. Over the span of a few decades, ending by the late 1900s, some 80 million American elms all across America died. Ghastly scenes of whole streets formerly lined with living elms, but now with dead trees, were common. The expression became "nightmare on Elm Street." Because the elms were in neighborhoods, i.e., areas loaded with people and property, these dead trees became hazards that had to be removed. Well, at least there was job security for the tree cutters. But there are a couple remnant stands of American elms still living and apparently doing well. Central Park, New York City, one of America's foremost urban green spaces, had American elms. This photo is dated to 1870, with what appear to be early plantings of elms, all lined up, as was typical. By 1894, the elms of Central Park were looking good. Those original elm trees of Central Park succumbed to DED, as did a first round of planted replacement elms. After all, DED is still present in North America. Nonetheless, another replanting was attempted, including with trees that had some resistance to DED, and with a new regimen of forestry management with a principal tactic of applying a fungicide to the root systems of each tree. This appears to be working, as today the Literary Walk, located in the southeast corner of Central Park, is lined with large, mature American elms. It's called the Literary Walk because it's also lined with statues of famous authors. All the usual suspects are here, including these women's rights pioneers, whom I like the most and therefore snapped a pic. According to the Central Park Conservancy, whose link is below in the description box, Central Park is one of the most significant stands of American elms in existence today. I would concur with that. Walking this pathway of Central Park is like walking back in time, truly sublime, being underneath the canopy of large, healthy elms. It is still arguable that planting trees of the same species so close to one another is a good idea or not from a plant pathology point of view, but it's easy to see why the American elm was planted so extensively, and to the exclusion of anything else, along neighborhood streets across America. Elm Street, USA is truly lovely. In addition to the fungicide being applied to each tree, another management tactic is to keep humans off the grass, at least the grass over the rooting zones of each tree. The roots are shallow and therefore at risk of injury from compaction, So, no picnics, no frisbee, no making out, no nothing directly underneath the crown of these trees. Small price to pay to hopefully maintain the health of the stand. I was there in springtime, just as first leaves were coming out, but stock images during autumn show magnificent fall colors, and this forest has a certain beauty and appeal even in winter. I met one of the caretakers of the Central Park Elms during my visit. Wallace gave me a few comments on tape. I asked, what does it take to maintain these elms in good health?
Yeah, it's an acronym for Integrated Pest Management. It involves scouting, identifying pests, determining whether or not it requires an intervention, seeing if there's any beneficial insects or other pathogens that would be able to control what we're trying to control, that's a disease, that's a pathogen.
By the way, some 60 or so mature American elms still exist on campus at Colorado State University, and they're considered so valuable they made the CSU patch. New bucket list item for me, seeing the Fort Collins elms before they, or I, succumb. Obviously, Central Park is invaluable generally. The benefits of this green space located in such a dense urban area can't be monetized. Native New Yorkers know this and support the existence of Central Park, and New York City dogs approve as well. Visitors to New York should book a couple of hours to stroll through the park, specifically along the Literary Walk with its cathedral-like canopy of large, mature, healthy American elms. If you happen to share that moment with a forester, you might hear the story of the demise of the American elm as no less than one of the great ecological catastrophes of U.S. history. In so doing, appreciation will grow of just what a miracle it is that the Central Park elms exist.
The fact that it still exists is a miracle, and a collective miracle of will and community.